What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Removes Podcast. I am Jonathan Gonzalez, and I'm here with...
I'm Jeff Luna.
And today we have the Home Dream team on with us.
Woo!
What's going on, guys? We have Jesus and Jaslene Chavez of Home Dream. So tell us, who are you guys and what do you do and what is Home Dream?
Yeah, so first and foremost, thank you guys for having us on. I know that what you guys have been doing in the podcast space has been awesome, and interviewing people that are maybe up and coming or already have been established in the entrepreneurship role. So yeah, I'm Jaslene Chavez. I am first and foremost full-time mom. I am a full-time realtor, and now our new venture is just being expanding our business, and I'm co-owner of Home Dream. So that's a little bit about me. What about you?
So my name is Jesus. I'm a full-time fire captain for a local fire department. I'm a full-time investor and co-owner of Home Dream Real Estate.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So you guys wear a lot of hats.
Yeah, that's an understatement. We definitely wear a lot of hats.
Yeah, there's really not enough time in the day. Honestly, like I go to bed after the kids. I'm up like at 5:30 working, just because I want to make sure that I'm able to like section off my day, right? Because when you wear so many hats, you don't have enough hours in the day to really get it all done. So that's why I'm like, morning time, it's work time. Okay, I have 2 hours to take the kids to school. Let's do that. They're in school all day. You know, we work on basically when he's gone, I'm working from home. When he's home, you know, we're working together and kind of like expanding our business. So yeah, it really does take skill to be able to like differentiate your time and block that off.
Yeah, that's got to be challenging. I can only imagine. And same for you, right? Because you have to be gone for 2 days at a time or multiple days. Are you having to like entirely step away from what you're doing in investments and Home Dream and all that stuff?
Yeah, so basically the schedule right now is I work 48.96, so I work a total of 2 days, and then I'm usually off for 4, which equates to like a 56-hour work week, just compressed. So it's extremely nice. I'm extremely blessed to be able to do that. And I think basically what I do is when I'm at the fire department, that is fire department time. You know what I mean? I don't mix the two, and that's something that I definitely take pride on. So I'm there for 2 days. I'm all about it, you know, in terms of, you know, running calls. Yeah, I have a supervisor role, which is obviously an important one. So I allot a lot of the time to either training the guys or obviously emergency responses throughout the day. And on the flip side, usually during the 4 days, I have that entirety of the 96 hours. So I have that time to be able to work on real estate, you know, whether it's flipping, buy and hold, and basically assist with Home Dream.
That's nice.
Yeah.
So talking about how you guys first got into real estate, what kind of made you decide like, hey, I have a full-time job. I have this great job that a lot of people would love to have, but I kind of aspire to do more. Or what was it that kind of made you want to go into real estate?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it all came like we were looking for a house, right? So when was it, like 2017-ish?
It was around 2015.
Yeah. So looking at houses were like $450 at the time. But still at that time it was expensive, right? So we're getting outbid. And my grandpa's like, hey, like one of my friends is... basically her husband passed away, and there's this house that she's gonna sell to like a wholesaler, but if you want, like, go take a look at it and go see if you guys are interested in the property. So complete fixer, like nothing that we were aspiring to buy at the time, but we're like, let's do it. Like, what do we have to lose, right? I think we got it. What was that price that we got it for?
I think it was around $275.
So like,
which even at that time was kind
Whittier.
of unheard of, you know. Yeah, it was in Whittier.
Yeah. So we had no idea. Like, we didn't come from real estate, but we just knew, like, okay, that obviously our payment was like $1,400 there. So that's what kind of like looking back at it, that's what kicked us off. And I think you can talk more about like what happened after that. But just that one good find is why and how we were able to like expand our real estate, like just what we like about it.
Yeah. So I know we kind of talked about it, you know, earlier, but I'm definitely a big believer in things happen for a reason. And like she said, we were looking for a long time. We were looking. We couldn't find anything. And like she said, we kind of stumbled on that. But I think for me, and really getting into the investing thing was, you know, we were able to buy that house under value. The lady that was there was basically going to sell it to a wholesaler who was then going to sell it to someone, and then they were going to flip it, you know. So we essentially cut out that middleman, and were able to lock that house in a contract. anyways, we ended up getting the house. We ended up putting some money into it. And a few years down the road, I ended up doing the math, not thinking anything about real estate investing, but doing the math. Hey, this is how much we got the house for. This is how much we put into it. And then this is how much it's worth now. So it opened my eyes, I'm like, man, that's crazy. This house is worth this much. This is, what we've kind of done. And the rest is history. Ended up
let's do it again.
And let's just do it
again and again and again.
I ended up researching, kind of doing some online homework, if you will, and then ended up stumbling on Bigger Pockets. Yeah. So I'm sure you guys have heard of them, and it was like my Bible, whether it was looking at forums or looking at their actual articles, it just catapulted us into something different. And once again, just like we were talking about earlier, it's getting that initial deal and then just running with it, Yeah. And the crazy part, and I could remember it even now, is a lot of the friends that we were telling were like, dude, you guys are crazy, as far as dumping this much money into it or just getting into real estate investing in general. And I always say the same thing. It's always crazy until it works.
Yeah.
Yep, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So what year was that? You said you bought it in 2015, and then when did you come to the realization that's like, holy crap, look at this?
So I want to say it was a couple years after that.
Maybe a year, because we bought the house in 2015, and then I found out I was pregnant with Jade like literally a week after we closed.
Oh wow!
It was like boom, boom, and like I had no aspiration to be like a real estate agent, like nothing. I went to school. I got my degree in criminal justice. Was working at the DA's office like as a victim assistant. I was studying for the LSAT like while pregnant. Like I was good, took the LSAT, got into Whittier College, and then I was like, I can't, like that didn't go through. And I'm like, there's no way I can like keep going to LA while he's gone with the newborn. So I stood home for the year. I had like a full like identity crisis, right? Because everything you think you are, because I'm sure like we put a value on us based off our work, right? Mm-hmm. How many deals do we have? How many, I don't know, contracts.
How many shoots did I have today?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so that was really hard. Like that was a really hard first year. He's like, get into real estate investing. Or no, you said, get your license.
Yeah.
And I was like, ugh, I do not want to be a realtor. I was like, I'm educated, okay?
That's that stigma, right? Because the bar is so low. Like you take a test and
right.
You're in.
And like for me, I'm like, realtors are so cheesy. They have their signs on the corner every weekend. Like I just had no aspiration to sell anyone anything. But he's like, just do it for us. I was like, fine, I'll do it for us.
Yeah. And like I said, I was getting pretty heavy into investing. So I'm like, just get your license to where you could write our deals, know, whether that's, something local or any type of investment. Just get your license to where you can make that easier for us, as opposed to us having to go to a third party.
A lot of money.
Yeah, save us a lot of money. We're not having to go to a third party, as we're keeping everything in-house. And I think little by little, she started to get into more public sales, if you will, which, she's done awesome at. But she still writes our investment deals. Mm-hmm. So we have that nice balance, if you will.
Yeah, well, I got my license, and it was kind of like, well, what's next? I had no idea you had to hang your license with a broker, like none of that, right? Mm-hmm. But the broker that I'm with now, I went to high school with him, his son. And so it just kind of like clicked, and they had classes. I'm like, hey, like you could really actually help people. And that has always been like something that I wanted to do. I think that's why I was like in the criminal justice field, like just kind of like sticking up for people that don't have a voice, right? Yeah. And so I often feel like, especially in the real estate space, there's a lot of realtors that are just out there just for a commission check. And you can sense that, like when you're working with another realtor. Mm-hmm. And so as a newbie, I can sense that. And I'm like, that's what I don't want to be. Like, I don't want to be that agent that is just out there for a commission check. Because like, yeah, it's nice to have money, but I also have like him. I'm not dependent on the money, So it's more about like the connection and like really how can I help that person. And so I think that's just really like what took my business kind of grew into our business and kind of where we're at and like why we're starting Home Dream,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
That property you guys purchased in 2015, mm-hmm. Did you guys end up keeping it or like
so that
cash out refi or?
So we actually ended up selling that one.
Oh,
we ended up selling it.
Worst mistake ever.
Yeah, it was. It's funny because you look back at it, and it was, and it wasn't.
It wasn't.
You know what I mean? Like you look back at it, and you're like, man, that property is worth X amount now. You know, it's worth what, probably $700,000 or $800,000. You know, so you're like, I left that money on the table, if you will. But at the same time, with that money, we're able to purchase, a triplex, duplex, single families. So in that sense, it didn't, because you take that amount of money that you would have walked away with, if you will, and it's
one
a
thing
lot
leads
more
to
with,
another.
with multifamily.
Yeah. Well, kind of like on that topic. So we got it for a really good deal, right? I think we put like maybe 50 to 60,000 into it.
Yeah.
And then we were able to pull a HELOC out. So we pulled the HELOC out, and then with the HELOC money, we bought the triplex. So the triplex is awesome because we bought it for like $650. Uptown Whittier right now it's probably worth like 1.2. Nice. And I mean, we're cash flowing pretty good on that triplex, but if it wasn't for that first house, we wouldn't have been able to pull the HELOC, buy that triplex. And then we ended up selling that house on Homage. We sold it for $550, which at the time was really good.
Yeah, we're like, man, $550, that's crazy, Or like, we ended up getting like 30 plus offers on it.
It was insane.
So we're like, man, we're so happy. And then same thing, you look back at it 2 years later, you're like, oh man, how much is it worth?
But I mean,
and then you were able to sell it yourself, right?
So yeah, which is really weird, having your own yard sign in front of your neighbors. I was like, yeah, that's me. But so with that sale of Homage, we were able to buy a duplex, like in a really good part of Whittier, like above the boulevard. And that one's really cool because I think it's SB9. So it's basically like 2 houses on one lot, but driving by, you can never tell that it's a duplex. Wow. So with SB9 passing in the future, what we can do is subdivide that lot and then sell it as an individual. So that was a gold mine. And tell the story as to like, we weren't even ready to buy that house and you just threw us in there.
So I think that's why we have such a nice balance, if you will, is because she is very analytical and, hey, let's do this and do that, and I'm just full send. Let's do it. You know what I mean? So I ended up seeing this property come on the market, and I'm like, man, I think at the time it was listed at $1 million.
It was
right?
$995.
Yeah, so right around there, and I saw it, and I ended up seeing the possibilities. Seeing what we could do with it, and here, especially in Southern California, is you have to get somewhat creative with the properties that you purchase, how you purchase them, so on and so forth. So I ended up seeing it, and I'm like, hey, write an offer like right now.
Like we weren't even qualified.
Yeah, she's like, we're not even like pre-approved. we weren't even looking. It was just randomly on Zillow.
Yeah.
But I think, given the amount of homework that I had done on real estate investing, I had a good idea of what was, a good purchase, what wasn't. So I go, just right now, just send it. And then she ended up sending out the contract, I want to say within the next few hours. And we ended up getting it into contract. I want to say it was either that night or the next. So, and I think it really brings forward a good point, is especially in Southern California, if you're real estate investing, is you have to be quick, right? You can't take your time in terms of, hey, I want to think this over. I need to talk over it with, my business partner. It goes like that, and whether they were looking for that initial offer and then we're just going to say yes or no, who knows, right? We have it now, but who knows? But it's just one of those things where we had to move fast.
Yeah.
So
it's like what another one of our guests said. He's like, hey, if the numbers make sense, pull the trigger. Like, that's all that matters. Really.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, and you guys know with investing is you could have analysis paralysis, right? Is where you're just overthinking a deal and you work yourself out of a deal, right? You're thinking, hey, this could happen, that could happen, this could happen. And before you know it, it's too late, So that would definitely be my advice to someone that's a newer investor. Obviously, do the homework, make sure that your numbers are there. But if your numbers are there, just run it,
Yeah. That agent's like, hey, we're going to accept your offer. And I called him. I was like, they're going to accept our offer. And we're not even qualified. Like, what the heck, And so I called our lenders. I'm like, hey, can you qualify us? Yeah, no problem. So we wrote it for $1 million, got it for $1 million. I mean, again, right now it's probably worth 1.3.
Yeah, 1.3, 1.4 around there.
Yeah, but that's so awesome. It's just like you always say, you have to start before you're ready. Yeah. Like, I've always taken his lead. I've never really pushed back with you. You know what I mean? He's like, hey, let's do this. And I'm always like, okay, let's do it. Like, I'm down.
If you're confident, like if you didn't have him, you think you'd be a little bit more reserved, conservative about it.
If I didn't have him, I'd be a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah, and I think that's what I think my position within the fire department has definitely helped us, because like she said, we have that, security, it's an awesome job, awesome career. I love what I do. But it definitely opens us up to taking some more risks, and then you talk about like opportunity costs, right? Opportunity costs. And we definitely have the ability to take more opportunities or more chances, if you will, on things that maybe, we wouldn't if we didn't have that security, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Talking about a little bit about your business, because I think you came into being an agent with the intention of just like, hey, I'm just gonna, write offers for us. We'll save a little bit of money. It'll be good. But then you ended up taking on a whole new role, and like you said, you're doing public sales, right? You're doing a lot more residential sales with people who you don't know, right? Like, because like you always say, you're not really doing business until you're doing business with people you don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
And now you've blown up. So how did like that start? How did that progress? Why did you start taking it on? And you said you started helping people, but how did it snowball from there?
Well, honestly, I was like, hey, let's give it a shot. Like, if I have my license and if I like meeting new people, like, I like to know your story, right? And like, hey, like, what do you need from me at this time? Because obviously, like, you came into the way I think about it, right? Like, I think you and I have the same kind of thought process, but everything happens for a reason. Like, that's always just my thinking about life in general. Right. So I'm like, hey, I have my license. Like, let's give it a shot. So open house one day, like just sitting there, my first open house, I think, or maybe like second, but I was like brand new to the business. And I'm like, oh, well, they said I should follow up. So let me try this follow-up stuff. So I call this guy, and he's like, yeah, like I met you at the open house. Like, this is my lender. I'm really interested in the home. Had my first escrow within a month.
Wow.
So then I'm like, all right, like I had no idea what I was doing that escrow, but I pretended like I did. I'm like, yeah, let's do the inspection. The appraisal's easy peasy. Yeah. Like all this stuff. And then it kind of just snowballed from that. Like open houses was my jam for a little bit. Mm-hmm. But you help 2 people, those 2 people refer you like 5 other people, right? Because you gave them like such a great experience that they just want to tell the world about you. Now they're your little soldiers. Yeah. And so like, honestly, my business right now is like all referral. Because I make sure that like, 1, my client has a great experience through the transaction, but also 2, that like I protect them. Like I'm their voice, right? And I think that's what stuck with me, like through just kind of like doing the whole criminal justice thing, is like kind of speaking up for people that don't have a voice. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like that has really translated into real estate. And that's how it really just blossomed. And Instagram has been great, Yeah. Like I've helped countless people this year that didn't know me, but I showed up on their Explorer page, and then we just kicked it. Yeah. And
so you kick off conversation like via DMs or something? And
Yeah. And I'm like, hey, let me give you a call. And I call them. I kind of like see what they're looking for. I mean, half the time they're not even looking to buy or sell. They want to like pull a HELOC, but it doesn't make sense. Mm-hmm. And so we kind of like go over the different opportunities that they could have. So I think that's one thing as a realtor too, is like you have to be educated as to what other options your clients could have, or like what other loan options are out there for them, or maybe selling's not the best thing, like keep it as a rental. So I think when you don't have that, like, oh, I need this commission like right now, you're able to help your client more, because you're like, hey, let's take the time and kind of like see what you need.
Yeah, you're a true advisor with like real, genuine intentions.
Right.
Yeah. And I definitely think that people could pick up on that. I mean, we've all either had an agent or someone in sales that's just kind of trying to push something on you, And dude, you could definitely tell. You could definitely kind of feel their vibes. So, yeah, I gotta say, from just a husband perspective, if you will, it has been awesome just watching her interact with, clients. Whether it's I'm usually the photographer when she gives keys, so I'm like in the background taking the picture, or taking the video. I'm usually just the helper for the day. But it's been awesome, because I gotta say she's built just long-lasting relationships. And I can remember when she was newer to the business, she would be on the phone all the time, and I'm like, damn, she's on the phone all day, but I didn't understand, the customer service side of it and what that all entailed. I'm like, man, we kind of got in over our head. I just wanted you to write my names. What's going on here? Right. So like I said, it has been awesome to see her blossom as an agent. It's been pretty cool. Yeah. And some of these relationships that she builds are like long-lasting relationships. I can remember she was in the business maybe 2 to 3 months, and she goes, hey, one of my clients is inviting us to her wedding, and I'm like, your wedding? I don't know these people, I don't want to go to a wedding, I don't know them at all. But I gotta say, it's been awesome, and we ended up going to that wedding. I had a blast, and now I go to every single wedding, every single party
every
I can
birthday
go to,
party, I'm like, we're going.
Yeah, every backyard party. I mean, we've been everywhere, and it's been a blast.
I think one thing that I really like about what you guys do is that you share the wealth. Like, case in point, like I shot, I don't know, they might have mentioned to you headshots for I think one of your coworkers, right? And I don't know whether they're in real estate now because of what you've kind of told them, but it seems that way. And then also with like everything you guys are doing with Home Dream, all the advice you're giving is to just genuinely help other people. Because like, hey, if I can do this, I want you to be able to do it too. Like, I can help you along the way, but like, let's just all do well together.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool that you guys do that.
Yeah, and I'm sure she could touch on some things right now, but I've always had a business model, if you will, of we all got to be winning. You know what I mean? And that's from beginning to end.
There's enough for everyone.
There's enough for everyone. We're not the type to where it's like, hey, I want to do this flip, or I want to take on this investing property, if you will, and I gotta be the one that wins, while the contractors, while photographers, while realtors, while everyone else loses. Like, that's not our business model. And I think it's something that's helped us, because much like people being able to see, hey, they're genuinely doing this to help me. On the flip side of that, everyone else that's working with us kind of sees it, and they're like, hey, they are in this for my best interests. You know what I mean? So I feel like as long as people know that, then it's a good business model.
Yeah, and I think that's the reason why we created Home Dream, right? Because I didn't come from real estate. My parents had one house. I mean, they were both 9-to-5 workers. Like, you just get a job and you save your money and you get married and have kids and live in that one house forever, sort of thing. You know what I mean? But like with just like meeting him and just being like, I took his lead like 100%. It was like a leap of faith. I was like, well, you're gonna do it, I'm gonna do it too, sort of thing, So I'm like, hey, real estate has worked out really well for us. And a lot of people think that it's just too expensive. There's no way. Like, I'm not gonna lie, real estate is expensive, but there is a way for you to do it, right? Yeah. And so like the reason why we started Home Dream is because like just to show people like you can do X, Y, and Z, or these are your options. You don't need that much money. Like, just kind of, you don't have to buy your forever home the first house that you're in, sort of thing. So if like they don't come from a family that is into real estate, like where do they turn?
Yeah, because I think everybody has different goals, right? It's like, oh, I just want to make more money, or I want to have passive income, or I want to just live in a house, rent the other, so I just can enjoy free time with my kids or whatever. So whatever it is, you guys are able to come in and kind of like advise them. I think that's nice, a nice thing to have.
And so the Home Dream is like a company to educate basically home sellers and buyers, or
so we basically modeled it after a company built to connect with people, and our way of doing that is real estate, right? So it's helping people buy, sell, invest, flip. The nice thing about our business model and kind of the way in which we've done things in the past is that we have that experience with buying, selling, flips, buy and hold. So you're not going to a company that's just a single source company, if you will. You have a well-rounded company. And like I said, at the end of the day, our biggest thing is just connecting with people. That's just the real estate just happens to be the way in which we do it.
Right. Yeah. No, because I think you're right. I think a lot of times some of these agents you can smell it, right? They just want to get paid, or, we saw during COVID too, like, obviously the prices were crazy, and people were writing offers, non-contingent, no appraisal, and people getting hosed on, having to come out of pocket. It was crazy.
Yeah.
A lot of lawsuits too. A lot of people don't realize that. They changed the contracts again. This year they updated them. Why they do that? Because there's so many lawsuits going on.
Yeah.
And these agents make these crazy, offers that sometimes the buyers or sellers may not be comfortable with,
Yeah.
So
it's crazy what an uneducated realtor would do. Like people in my office sometimes too. It's just like, oh yeah, my buyer will waive the appraisal. And I'm like, okay, but do you know how much they're going to have to pay out of pocket if that happens, Like the last comp is at $700 and you're going at $750 waiving the appraisal. That's a $50,000 difference that they could have. So I always tell my client, like during COVID, if I got through COVID, I'm like, I could sell it at any time. I always tell my clients, like, I know it's hard, but I'm right there with you. Like every step of the way, I'm there with you. I'm up early. I'm there for you at like 11 o'clock at night at every showing because I want to see this through with you, you know?
Yeah.
And so I think it just comes down to like being an educated realtor,
Right.
and being like, hey, this may be the case. Like, are you okay with a $20,000 difference? Are you okay with that? You know, and just being upfront. So that way when you're in escrow, it like doesn't go spiraling down because you've already had that conversation with them up front.
And like we always tell our clients, like it's not like our job to like tell you what to do. Our job is to give you your options and you make an informed decision on what works best for you and your family at the end of the day, right? So like that's it. You know, we're not here to you must do this to get there, right?
Yeah.
So I think that happens quite a bit, you know, because agents just see the money at the end of the day.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, and I can remember back to when we were looking for our first house.
Oh God.
Yeah, it was the same thing as we had an agent, and I talked about it earlier, right? Is you have that person who's just like, is just reeking of like, hey, I want to sell you something, anything, right?
And as a new buyer, you don't know what's normal, you know? Because it's like, what, this is normal, okay? Like, you're the professional, I'm taking your word on this.
And I ended up getting a recommendation from a buddy, you know, and same thing. He didn't know any different, you know?
Right.
Yeah. But looking back at it now, it's like, man, like it's crazy just the difference that you could have in between realtors, in between companies.
Yeah.
Tell them about that realtor that sold us friends.
Oh yeah, no, just another sleazy. Another sleazy
A lot of people
realtor.
just out there for a check.
Yeah.
Sleazy how though? What
This guy was so funny.
It just kind of corny, just kind of cheesy. You know, we ended up. I think it was before you had your license.
No, I
whenever
had
it
my
was.
license, and he was like, "But the only way that you can get this house if you use me."
Damn.
And so then I was like, honestly, like the 15 grand, I'm like, whatever, take it, because I know the worth of this house long term. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm like, hey, you can double end it.
Yeah, so we ended up double ending it, or he ended up double ending it. And so we showed up, and like I said, it was just kind of corny, kind of cheesy. You know, we show up, and I want to say he's ready to show us a house, or we had written the offer, whatever the case was. But he had our contract printed out, or what he had written up for us, and then he had another contract that he ended up taking just randomly and saying, hey, you know, this is the other person that was going to get the house, and just ripped up the other contract in front of us. You know, we're like, what? We're like, okay. Yeah, we're like, all right. You know? Yeah. So it's just funny, you know. And same thing, like I said, if you're newer to real estate, you just have no idea what's right, what's wrong. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I think that's our thing is, exactly. It was like slow mo. He's just whoosh, we're like, okay, and we're just staring at each other like, really, did that just happen? But like I said, you're just so new to everything, and that's our big thing is just to educate. At the end of the day. You know what I mean? Obviously, we want the business. We want people to
trust
relate.
us.
Yeah, trust us and go with Home Dream. But if it's someone else, then it's someone else. It's all good. You know what I mean?
For sure. I mean, I had a client that's like, rates are high, and I get it, right? But they wanted to shop loans. I'm like, hey, that's fine. Shop loans. Like, at the end of the day, I'll work with whoever you want. So this lender was like, I'll give you this rate, but you have to work with my realtor.
What?
Yeah, because he was well, he was like giving up like a grip of his commission, and I said, look, like I know like what I'm worth at the end of the day, like I know what I can do for you, and I'm not going to give up that much of my commission because that's not fair. I mean, that's like me buying your business, and it's like you should trust me enough to like want to work with me. And so I gave it up. I'm like, okay, if he's going to promise you X, Y, and Z, like I'm going to make sure that he sticks to his X, Y, and Z, you know? So I'm like, you better do this and you better do that for them because that's what you said.
Right.
So.
But it's like also one of those businesses where it's like this stuff happens all the time.
All the time.
And there's no accountability, right? There's no one to like regulate this stuff. Like, how are you going to prove it? You know?
Yeah.
Like that's the thing that kind of like, it's crazy. Like you see all these dudes that, and some of the like, that beach house that we sold, right? Mm-hmm. We had a showing. And I had to drive all the way out there to Huntington Beach, right? And I mean, I didn't mind because it was nice. Yeah. but I was over there and I was showing the house, and he's talking about, the money's in Canada. It's tied up at the border, but don't worry. And he was saying like, can we move in before we close? And I'm like, what? Yeah, he was saying stuff like this, right? So it turns out he gives me this business card, right? And it's some office in Downey, and my family's from Downey, so like my dad knows like pretty much a lot of people. So he knew the broker at the office, right?
Oh, wow.
So my dad calls the broker, like, hey, man, what's going on with this dude? Like, is he for real? Like, you know, he was showing this house, but his client wasn't there, and he kind of was asking these weird questions.
Yeah.
And then he's like, what's his name? And my dad gave him the name on the card. And he's like, oh, yeah, the young kid. And he's like, I'm talking about this guy was like 50 plus. He's not no young kid. So
No
this
way.
guy was using his nephew's license. He lost his license. And he's over here showing houses.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, do I have to really, like, everyone that texts me to show a house, I gotta, like, validate that?
Yeah.
Like,
Show
man,
me your
I gotta
ID.
run a background-
I know.
You gotta run a background check?
Yeah.
Like,
Excuse me, I need your thumb prep before you go inside this house.
that's what I'm saying. Like,
Scan.
that's the type of stuff. It's, like, crazy that goes on. It's like, man, this guy's showing property without a license.
Talk
Like,
about the bar being
wild.
so low, right? Like I was just talking about this with one of my clients the other day too. It's just like the bar's so low that it sucks out there for a lot of people because anybody could like poach your clients or whatever and like take them because there's just sleazy people out there who have the wrong intentions and they
Right.
just
But
come
I'm
up
like,
and-
if you need the business that bad, like, then, I mean, have it, you know?
Yeah, and I think the thing with real estate too is the truth always comes out, right? It'll come out eventually in terms of how they perform as
Right.
a realtor. You know what I mean? Like down the line, they're going to be able to see, hey, maybe this wasn't, my best option. I might have saved, X amount, but this wasn't the right person to sell my house.
Right.
So the truth always comes out.
Yeah.
One thing that I like that you guys are doing with your business too is that you're giving back, right?
Yeah.
Like, so what is that all about? And then what are some things that motivate and drive you guys that are important to you?
Yeah, so I think for us, giving back, it's always been part of who we are, and I think a lot of it kind of goes back to how you grew up, your childhood, if
What
you
our
will.
roots were.
Yeah, just kind of going back to your roots. So I've always grown up in, let's just say, a very humble household,
Yeah.
if you will. So I've grown up uptown Whittier, South Whittier. I actually lived in Mexico for 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I think that experience for me was just life-changing, right? Because I was able to see just, firsthand what needing was like. You know what I mean? Like what actually needing for something was like, whether it was,
basic,
clothes,
like, life
food,
needs,
you know what I
yeah.
mean? So,
Yeah.
so being in that situation, it kind of took me into like, hey, I want to be able to give back because I came from this, now we're here and we're fortunate enough to make a good living. Now we want to give back to the community. Now we want to give back to people that are in need, and it's actually pretty crazy, and like I said, we're in working with the fire department, we usually do fill the boot. I'm sure you've seen,
course,
firemen out and about and, they have the boot out, people donate. And it's definitely not everyone, but a lot of times, a large majority of the times, the people that donate are the people that are maybe in the older cars, that are maybe giving out pennies within their, coin tray, that are, giving the last couple of bucks. And it's crazy because we talk about it, amongst, firefighters, and it goes back to, hey, they know what it's like to be in need.
Yeah.
So I think for us, when it came down to our business model, it's hey, we just want to be genuine in what we do, and that is that's exactly what we want to do. So
Yeah, you're really humble about that. Like, I always tell him, babe, how many houses did you live in growing up? Because we'll drive in Uptown. He's like, I live there, and I live there, I live there, I live back there. And I'm like, that. And just over lunch today, I was like, what made you want to be like, we're buying a house? Like, what made you not say, like, we're going to rent something?
Yeah.
And he's like, what'd you say? You're like, never in a million years did I want to rent. Like, I wanted to own something because he knew what it felt like to move around lots of times,
Yeah.
Yeah, I asked my mom actually today, I go, hey, how many times did we move between like me being born and by the time I was 18 or 19? And I think she said like 15 or 20 times.
Yes.
Wow.
So we moved around a lot, and whether that was because rents were going up or whatever the case, we moved around a lot.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where it comes from being in that situation. And like she said, it's crazy too, because I've never really talked about it a whole lot, and now I'm on a podcast and I'm talking about it.
Like, hi, world.
Yeah, exactly. But especially I think the time in Mexico, I was over there from the time I was 8 to the time I was 10.
I mean, tell
So
them. I mean,
old
he
enough-
was like cutting fruit as like an 8-year-old and selling it at a swap meet and like in Mexico, like, right?
Yeah,
hustle.
yeah.
Like, it's just
and it was funny because once again I was talking to my mom today, and I was like, hey, where exactly did we live? Because I have memories, from when I was a little kid, but with time, it kind of becomes blurry. And I was like, man, I kind of remember living somewhere where we had like it was almost like one of those corrugated metal roofs. I remember rain hitting and everything. She goes, yeah, we lived in like a 10 by 10 foot, living space with 5 of us in there. You know what I mean? So when you come from that situation, there are no limits. You know what I mean? Like, I would do anything to make sure that my family is set, that we're set. And there's really no kind of thinking, maybe I'm too shy to do this, or maybe I don't want to put myself out there because I've been here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so it can't get much worse.
It can't get any worse than
that. Like they say, if you start from nothing, you have nothing to lose.
Yeah, exactly. And then even hearing some of the stories of like when my dad was, kind of hitting rough times here, he was, my mom was hungry, my dad was hungry. He really had nothing to, kind of go off of to feed themselves or, somewhere to live. And I remember my mom telling me the story and me being like, wow, just being in shock. Because she said that when he was at a point where he had nothing, he legit went, door to door knocking to see if they had work. Never a handout, always, hey, is there something that I could help out with? Or if he saw a construction site, he'd be like, hey, can I help out for the day, whatever the case was.
And he's a painter.
So he paints now. He has a very successful business, but it took that grind. It took him doing that to where I'm listening to that and I'm like, man, if he was able to do that,
right,
I'm able to do this. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I think ultimately for us, it's starting this business, just being in a position where we're at now. A lot of it, I would say the majority of it is for our kids.
Right.
You know what I mean? Is for them to be able to see, hey, my parents came from here and now, they're here. And I want my kids to do 10 times what we do. You know what I mean? So when you have that behind you, there's no way we could lose.
The way you raise your kids, I'm just curious. Do you guys, because you don't want them to lose touch, right? Of what,
where their roots are.
You're gonna get me started.
Do you take them to Mexico or anything, or do you have intentions of doing that kind of stuff
dude? So it's pretty funny. Like I said, you're gonna get me started, but honestly, that
we'll
is
something.
Coffee. I need another coffee right now. So honestly, that's something that I think about on a pretty consistent basis.
Yeah.
Probably more than I should.
Well, I feel like we juggle with it a lot too.
Yeah, because to me, every experience that you've ever had molds you and shapes you into who you are. You know what I mean? So everything that I went through as a kid, as a teenager, all that stuff, you can't duplicate that, right? We all have our own life story. So for me, right, their childhood is going to be is going to be just a polar opposite of what I had as a child. So so that's, like I said, something that I struggle with, if you will, as far as hey, these are what we're going to put into play. These are the practices that we're going to take in order to make them humble, to make them, give back to their community, just overall good people, right? Yeah. I think I've read this before. It's hey, if you want, the biggest thing that you could do for your kids is making them into, adults that are contributing, adults that give back, adults that are just a good person.
I mean, and ultimately they watch us. They're going to watch our habits. What are we doing? The other day, Jade's Mommy, you work so hard. I'm also crying. Don't cry. She's just rest. I'll clean the kitchen. And she cleaned the whole entire kitchen.
No way. Yeah. That's really good. Yeah. Actually, the podcast we had right before this that I know. He was talking about how he is such a hard worker now because growing up, he never saw his mom. She was working at the hospital overnight. She would come home, study. He never saw her. So now he's she never told me, hey, work hard, but I saw that, and he's now I'm just such a hard worker because I have to prove it to her. So
yeah,
and it goes,
and it goes back to talking, about your childhood and how it molds you. Because I remember I've been at construction sites, like I said in that video, right, since I was a little kid. We ran into one of my dad's old bosses yesterday at Dunn Edwards, and he goes, yeah, ever since you were 10, 11, 12 years old, you've been at construction sites.
But tell him about how, so his dad worked for this guy and his mom was about to go into labor and they didn't have a car big enough to get his mom or a car seat in, and so his dad's boss essentially had to drive you guys while you were still in your mom's womb.
Yeah. To the hospital
and back.
Dang.
Yeah, but
That's cool though.
yeah, it's a crazy
out.
story. But yeah, I mean, going back to the kids, I think at the end of the day, it is going to be taking them on trips. We do those Baja bound trips where you go to Mexico and you essentially build a house for someone that doesn't have one or lives in, same thing, a 10 by 10 foot, basically.
Like a shed.
Yeah, shed. Yeah. So once our daughter and son are old enough, then we're going to be taking them, which is, I think, going to be within the next couple of years.
Yeah, I can't wait for like Jade and Jason to go, to be like, look, other people are living like this, you know, like, and that's why to me, like my dad always said, like, when you die, you can't take your dollars with you. You can't take your Louis bag with you. Like, all of that doesn't matter. What matters is like your family, that they're good, and then like what you can give back.
Yeah.
You know,
impact that you made.
Right. Yeah, no, and that's huge for us, because I think my concept of money really doesn't go that much further than like monetary value.
Because it's gonna come and go. Money
it's
comes
gonna come
and
and
goes.
go. It doesn't make us, you know, who we are. I've always said, like, hey, I came from nothing. You know, if I were to go back down to zero, I'd be able to make it back. I'd be able to come back.
You're gonna leave with nothing.
Exactly. You came with nothing. You're gonna eventually leave with nothing. So. For me and her, actually, like I said, money doesn't
identify
make us who we are. So, you know, I'd give it I'd give it all away.
Yeah.
You know, if I could, obviously we have to, you know, have something to live off of. But you know what I mean? It's not like we buy anything lavish. Like, we don't buy anything crazy, clothes or anything like that. We're pretty simple people, you know.
It's just a vehicle to help you to like make more of an impact or get where you want to go.
Yeah,
really.
Exactly. Yeah, we use it as an investing tool, obviously, for a livelihood. You know, just
I think it's more about the game too, right? It's like, you know, if you do well, like in real estate investing, well, part of it, the outcome is you're going to make money, right?
Yeah.
If you go to the gym every day and work out, you're going to be like really big, right? So it's just like an outcome of the game.
Yeah.
Right. People may look at, you know, certain like people in real estate, be like, oh wow, they're all about money,
right?
But it's really about the game, you know, for the true people who are in it. You
Yeah.
know, and that's really like for like any industry. It's not all about the money like people think. You know, because a lot of people that don't have money, they all look at people that have money. Oh wow, they're all about money.
Yeah,
you know,
and it's crazy.
Really
and I think for us too is we have, you know, we follow people that have a lot of money, but also give out a lot of money. You know, like Brandon Turner is huge on giving money out.
Right.
What is it, Ryan? Pineda is also big, you know, on the church, on giving back money. So the more you make, the more you have, the more you're going to be able to give. Yeah. And you're right. Someone might look at someone who has a net worth of X amount and be like, oh, dude, they either got lucky or they're all about the money. And it's not always like that.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I think like I've never been attracted to that someone that's just like all about themselves and like super self-centered. Because that's just like not who I am, like not who you are either. That's why I married you. But, you know, like just someone who's like humble. Like we know, thankfully, like I didn't have to move 15 times. Like my parents did a pretty good job, like kind of sheltering me from what they went through.
Yeah.
But still, like it's like they still didn't have that background, you know, from doing like the whole real estate thing. Mm-hmm. And I think too, like just with my dad being like a role model, like us going to Mexico all the time, we would go to Mexico just to like have tacos and just like chill. Yeah. I was like, we should go to Mexico just to have like cross into the border, over the border and get like some tacos, you know? But that was just like a thing for us, you know? Yeah. So I think like I was just instilled with that, like, hey, this is where our roots, this is where we came from. Like my dad was born in Mexico, Guadalajara. I can't even say it, but you know. So he was born there. So we would go there. We would go to the ranch, his family's ranch in Mexicali. So like I knew like, hey, these are our roots. Yeah. You know. So I think too, like if we can instill that into our kids, like, hey, like this is where you come from too, they're gonna have a good outcome. I think. Yeah. I hope. I pray.
Yeah, I think that stuff is important. Definitely.
Yeah, but no, that's why we made Home Dream, not just to like, obviously we want to teach people about real estate, but also to like give back. Right, because the impact that we have on this world after we leave, we want it to be like profoundly like great, you know?
Yeah, lasting.
Right.
Yeah. And it really seems like you guys really care. And that's, I think, all that matters, you know, is that you guys really care about the end user and the outcome that they have.
Yeah.
Right.
I feel like, in the business you have, you know, there are people that care, right? But I think that's one of the most important traits, you know, because people don't know anything like in real estate. You know, even educated people that are like in high profession jobs, they have no idea about real estate sometimes, you know. Yeah. So it's cool to, you know, educate them along the way, you know. Yeah. And let them make an informed decision and get into the house that they're going to be in for quite some time, you know?
Yeah. And
I always think about that too. It's crazy. Like some of the homes that we sold, they've been in the house for like 30, 40 years. I mean, we sold a house that they bought like in 78 or something. You know, he raised his family there, and that's humbling, right? To help them like with the sale, because it's like, man, they've been here for so long. This is like their legacy,
huge. Right?
Yeah. So it's a big deal, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're excited. We're excited for Home Dream, for it to grow. Ultimately, we're just in the beginning stages, you know, of it and its launch and things like that.
So that's like your own brokerage, right?
So right now, no, like I want to finish off the year strong with my sales, because I just like feel like I'm like a full-time mom, like I said. I have like multiple transactions going on right now, so I want to make sure my clients are settled. Yeah. And then I will study for my broker's license and then kind of branch off from there.
Nice.
But yeah, right now we're running our business as a DBA under a broker. Nice. So, but it's just a stepping stone. Like we always want to like strive to grow, you know, and not settle. And even though like half the time I feel like I don't even know what the heck I'm doing, you know, it's just kind of like reaching in the dark and just hoping that there's, you know, going to be light. Yeah, something there. But it's fun.
Oh, yeah.
It's so much fun.
No, and I think that's huge, you know, is I talked about analysis paralysis earlier. You know, you kind of get into something where you're like, man, if something is not set for you to look at in terms of like, hey, that's the end goal, or, you know, this is what my compensation is going to be. Sometimes it's hard to kind of traverse through, you know, whatever work that is or whatever's kind of going on. But I think for us, it's like, hey, we're going to take a leap of faith. We're going to go all in and then see where this takes us.
Yeah, because you never know if you don't try.
Yeah. What's next? Are you hoping to build a team after you get your license, or?
Maybe a small one, you know, just because like I'm very active myself, and like our kids are still young, so definitely not like a big team. But if I find like good people with good hearts, and they're like really are just like we have the same mindset, and I know that I can help them, you know, grow, then maybe a small one. I think eventually like I would want to have. We would want to have a business that's just kind of like self-sufficient. Yeah. And, you know, we can just kind of reap the benefit of all of our hard work these years, you know? Yeah. So that's like the end goal. And I think that's why, like, so like, yes, we do the flips, but we do the flips to buy and hold. Like, that's the ultimate goal. Like, if you can cash flow like $10,000 a month, just like without doing anything, like you're just literally cash flowing passive income, that I think is like what kind of like, let's do the flips to do the buy and hold to get the passive income. That way we don't have to wait till we're 60 to enjoy life, you know? Yeah.
I think money brings freedom. It'll allow you guys, once you guys, you know, have enough in your portfolio and you guys are getting all that passive income, you can then, okay, that's your retirement, and now you can just like free to like just chill, right? Like
and I will say I that's something that we're pretty big on, is just maintaining that balance. Like, you know, I mean, balance, that's the name of the game, right? Is you could go crazy on a business and just be all about that, but if your home life is bad, if your marriage, if your girlfriend is, you know, not getting the attention they need, you're obviously in a bad spot. So for us, it's all about maintaining that balance right now.
Yeah. I mean, and it's hard. I mean, balance is not easy.
Yeah.
You know?
No, it takes work. You know, it takes work. It's something that we definitely strive to get better at every day. But I think for us right now, and where we're at with Home Dream, is trying to build those systems, you know, put those into place. That way, if we are gone for 1 to 2 weeks, if we're, you know, taking on a flip, you know, buying another investment property, is that company is able to be self-sufficient, run itself.
Right.
Balance is important, right? Like, even I think both of you guys are both consistent at the gym, and like you guys both have your stuff outside of work, that like taking your kids to practice, taking them to school and all this stuff. And I think if, like you said, if you don't have that stuff, it's just like everything else falls apart, because if you're just working all the time and like go, it's just, it's gonna come to an end at some point. It can't last forever.
And it's like, why are you working so hard? Like, why have the money if you don't have anyone to enjoy it with?
Exactly.
Yeah. So we're like I said,
buy me
pretty
some
big
flowers.
on that. Even just dedicated time for our kids. You know, we allot X amount of time per day. That, and then softball for our daughter keeps us super busy. You know, so I never thought I'd be like a softball dad.
Yeah, we're like so hardcore.
I'm all about it, dude. I freaking love it. You know,
all the shirts and everything,
dude. Yeah.
No, last year he was
shirts.
the Easter bunny at the softball game.
Yeah, dude. I buy the shirts. You know, our son does jiu-jitsu, so he's in that. I'm all about that too. But yeah, dude, we're just kind of enjoying, you know, where we're at in life. And I talked about that balance, you know, is keeping that between family and between work. That's definitely important to us.
Yeah, definitely.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I mean, it came to my realization too, is like this outside of work life is so important, and I was just neglecting it for a long time that like, you know what, I was waiting for so long to buy a property, but like, you know, maybe it's not the right time for me. I'll wait another year, and then decided to rent a spot.
Yeah.
So now I'm hoping moving in tomorrow, that's going to bring like, you know, just a new environment, bring like better quality of life. And then so I can perform better in my business and perform like just optimally everywhere.
Right.
So that kind of excites me.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Awesome. Congratulations,
Yeah.
man. That's cool.
So I think I agree with you guys there. I guess I want to finish this off on one more note. I want to ask you guys a question here.
Yeah.
So if we can go back to certain times in your lives, right? Where you're facing adversity. So like, let's say for you, Jesus, when you're, you know, growing up, maybe you're a young adult and you have a tough upbringing, and for you, Jaslene, when you're, you know, you left your job at the DA's office, and you're like, okay, what the heck am I going to do? If you can go back and tell yourself one thing at that time, what would you tell yourself?
You start.
Yeah, no, I would just say play the hands that you are dealt. You know what I mean? So play the cards that you're dealt, right? Everyone has different strengths, different weaknesses, and I think that it's important for people to play the hand that they're dealt, right? So some people might come from, let's just say, an artist background. You said you interviewed an artist, you know, artist background, that's within their family, you know, and for them to be able to play that and ultimately say, hey, I want to go in either that field or something, you know, correlated to that, or whatever shaped and molded them into whatever age group that is that you're asking about, is utilize all of your experiences and then go off of that, right? So I know for us, when it got to real estate and, you know, real estate investing, I ended up sitting down and then basically taking a look at what I had around me, right? So I had, you know, at that time, Jaslene, who ended up going into real estate, right? I had a construction background. My dad had, you know, at that point, a successful construction business. I like numbers. I like real estate. So you take all that, and then we have Home Dream. We have real estate investing, right?
Yeah.
We have flipping. So utilize whatever you were dealt, play that, and dude, you can't go wrong. Because if you're doing something with a passion, if you're truly passionate about something, dude, you can't lose, right? It might take 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, but you're gonna get to a point when you're like, damn, like all of that was worth it.
Yeah.
So that's what I would recommend.
Yeah, I think for me, it's just like, be yourself. Like I read something at Jade School the other day. It said like, be yourself because everyone else is already taken, you know? And so that really hit home because like when I was like a full-time mom and I felt like my identity was like stripped from me, it's because it was my ego. It's like I was so egotistic because I thought like, oh yeah, this identifies me as a person, right? But you need to take that all away. Like what if you had no shoots? Like how would you feel, right? You still need to feel like content with yourself because you know who you are as a person. So I think like through that years, or I think it was like 1 year, I was like having a hard time. You know, because then you have other people like, oh, you could have been a lawyer or you could have done this. And then like you're looking for outside approval. But if you don't have like inside approval, like you're not going to feel very well, even if you accomplish everything else that everyone else wanted you to do, you know? So I think for me, it's just like, hey, like things happen for a reason. Know who you are truly at the end of the day, even if everything was stripped from you. Like, who are you going to be as a person?
Yeah.
You know, because at the end of the day, that's what you're going to walk away with. And that's how you're going to feel about yourself. So yeah, just kind of like know who you are. And that was
stay true to yourself.
Stay true to yourself. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on. That was really, really good.
Yep,
thanks for making me cry.
Yeah, I know. Right? You made some cry. We'll give Jade a hug after this.
I know, right?
Jade, I love you.
No, thank you guys. We definitely appreciate your time.
And I'm really excited for what you guys are building. Truly, like it's very cool to see like all this, you know, unfolding and helping you guys through it too, and
Right.
being an extension of your team. So I'm excited to see you guys keep growing and keep killing things.
Yeah,
And
we're so happy we met you.
yeah, I know.
You can't leave. Don't leave us.
No, I'm not going anywhere.
Even with all those video edits that we asked for.
No,
or
it's all
I asked
good.
It's not me.
Part of us.
He's like, man, I'm over this guy.
It's all good.
No, but I think that goes back to and I'm a big believer in how you do anything is how you do everything.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So things like that where I'm like, all right, I want this to look perfect,
to be
and it's
the right
it's a
shade of
small,
blue.
yeah, it's
I
all
know
in the
he's
details.
like a perfectionist. I'm like, yeah, you married me.
It matters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for listening out there. Be sure to like, follow, and subscribe, and follow Home Dream on
Home Dream
anywhere, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
all platforms. Make sure you guys stay tuned as to what's going to happen with us. So
Yeah.
yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you guys
Thank
very
you.
much.
Peace out, guys. I'll see you on the next
Bye.
one.
Bye.